Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I'm going to show you 5 tips to hit forehands like the pros. Please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Even share this video with a friend, as those are the best ways to support this channel. Now, I am using the Topspin Pro in this video. It is an awesome product. I am an affiliate. You can check out my affiliate link in the description below. If you're a parent, a coach, or a player, you need to get a Topspin Pro. 2 big shout outs. The footage you're about to see come from Tennis Academy 101 and Essential Tennis. So Serena, that is from Tennis Academy 101. Azarenka, that video is from Essential Tennis. I put their links in the description below. Please give those guys a subscription. They have incredible pro footage. So let's go to it right now. Let's look at Serena Williams and Azarenka. And I'm going to show you the 5 things you can do to improve your forehand. And then I'll come back and I'll demonstrate it all on the Topspin Pro. Now, the first tip is to take the racket back with both hands. And you can see Serena doing this here. She's taking the racket back, and her left hand, since she's right-handed, is following the racket. So the racket is going to be going up at an angle, but with both hands traveling along with the racket. So you don't want to just take the racket back with just your hitting arm. You want it to be a body rotation, taking the racket back with both hands. When I'm back in front of the camera again, I'll show you why this is so important. And you can see Vika doing the same thing. She's taking the racket back, and I could actually draw a circle, and both hands are in the circle. Many amateur players just allow their left arm, if they're right-handed, to just dangle down. Her arm is over. So you want to take the racket back first, going up. You want to take the racket up as you turn, and you want both hands to go with the racket. The second tip is to drop the racket down in the back. So this is a great view of it for Serena. Watch her racket go down. You want gravity-assisted racket speed. So we know this C swing, right? You've probably heard of the C swing. Well, at this point in the C, the racket is dropping. So that just helps accelerate the racket. If you don't take the racket high initially, then you won't be able to drop the racket and get gravity-assisted racket speed. That's why the first tip was to go up with both hands. And it's the same thing here with Vika. Watch her racket drop down in the back. So her racket's here, and now her racket's going to drop. And when a racket drops, it's kind of like driving your car downhill. Yes, you can hit the gas pedal to go faster, but the gravity-assisted acceleration helps as well. So when you take the racket high on your way back and then drop the racket, it just helps you to swing that much faster. Now, one added idea here. When you drop your racket down the way Azarenka and Serena are, I want you to close your racket face when you are planning to hit topspin. And let me show you what a closed racket face looks like. And the amount you close will vary based on your grip or the amount of spin you're trying to hit. So let's zoom in here. I'm going to draw the angle of their rackets. So you can see Azarenka's racket is closed only a little bit. That means tilted down. Where we see Serena's racket is tilted a lot. So we know that in this situation that Vika is going to be driving the ball, hitting less spin, hitting more through the ball, where Serena is going to be swinging more up. The more you close the racket face, the more later on it'll force you to swing low to high. If you close the racket face a little bit, and by the way, this isn't done by using different grips. It's just the amount you tilt the racket down. And when you tilt the racket the way Azarenka's doing, in slow motion, we know that she's going to be more driving the ball. It still has topspin. We zoom in here, we can see the ball spinning with topspin. But because she only closed the racket face a little, we know that she's going to be not getting super far below the ball and driving more into the back of it as she brushes up and through and penetrating into the back of the ball. So make sure that you are dropping the racket down in the back the way they both are, but close the racket face, and it's going to correlate with how much spin you want. If you want a lot of spin, drop the racket down below the ball a lot, the way Serena has, and close the face. And then you'll be able to swing up a lot. If you want to drive the ball more with topspin, only drop a little bit below the ball and close the racket face a little less. So because they are slightly below the ball, the next tip is to make sure that you are swinging up as you're hitting the ball. Now, as I mentioned, the amount you swing up will be determined by how much you close the face and how far below the contact you go. But if we just draw a circle where Serena's racket is right now, and then we go to contact, and then we go after contact, it's pretty easy to see her racket is going up as she's hitting this ball. So this is the simple low to high swing that we talk about as coaches every day. That is what imparts the spin. When the strings face forward and the racket travels up, the ball spins with topspin. That's how you get a ton of control. So you'll see Vika doing the same thing. So after she hits the ball, the racket is traveling above contact. So if we just draw a line at the level of contact, now her racket is above that line. Here it's below the line. Here it's above the line. You have to make sure that you are swinging up. Even when trying to hit a flat forehand, you need to be swinging up as you're hitting that ball. Now, one thing I don't hear a lot of coaches talk about is the non-hitting hand at this point. And I've noticed that players struggle knowing what to do with this non-hitting hand. Remember, when we took the racket back, we're going to take it back with both hands, right? But then once the racket begins dropping, we clear the left hand if you're right-handed. We clear the non-hitting hand out of the way, which allows for hip turn. But I want to show you what they both do with their non-hitting hand. I'm going to draw a circle around Vika's left hand right now. I'm going to do the same thing with Serena. They're in a very similar position with their rackets. And I want you to watch where their left hand goes by the time they contact the ball. Notice that their left hand is rising. This is so important. You want your non-hitting hand above the level of contact. You want your non-hitting hand above the level of contact. One of the biggest mistakes I see players make on their forehands is they can't turn their hips. And it's because their non-hitting hand, as they're hitting the ball, it drops. If your non-hitting hand drops below the level of contact, it will become a counterweight. And you'll even see players hug themselves. And I'll show you this when I'm back in front of the camera. But it actually inhibits hip turn. And then the player swings across. They can't get topspin. They look like a pretzel. They almost look like they're in a straitjacket hugging themselves. So you have to make sure that your non-hitting hand is higher than the level of contact. This is across the board what you see on the Pro Tour. Non-hitting on both Pro Tours, men's and women's. Non-hitting hand above contact. If the contact is super high, then the non-hitting hand will be around contact height. But on anything that's more of a medium, maybe like chest high ball or lower, they're going to have the non-hitting hand higher than contact. And the last tip I want to show you is I want you to finish with your hitting hand higher than eye level. I absolutely love this. You can see, we can't even see Vika's face because her elbow, you know, that idea of point your elbow to your target. But one thing I like to tell my students is have your hitting hand higher than eye level. Remember, we're trying to swing low to high. So this just promotes that upward swing as we're hitting the ball. And I even like that Serena caught the racket. Venus and Serena, Dominic Thiem, when he's practicing his forehand, I absolutely love when players catch the racket. Oh, I mean, Serena is arguably both men and women the greatest player of all time. And she's catching her racket. And I want you to catch your racket because it promotes that non-hitting hand to be above contact, as I showed you in tip number 4. So when your non-hitting hand is rising and then you catch the racket, it just makes sure that you had the non-hitting hand higher than contact. So let's go back out to the Topspin Pro and I'm going to show you all of these tips. All right, that was so cool to see 2 world-class players doing 5 things that you can do to improve your forehand. Let's go over them right away. First, take your racket up slightly with both hands by turning your body rather than just pulling your arm back. When I feed players balls and I'm giving a lesson, I see them all the time. They just reach their racket back and they disconnect their arm and their body when really we want it synchronized. We want everything connected. We want to take the racket back by actually turning our body rather than reaching and pulling, and it's like we're handing our racket to someone behind them. One drill I'll have my students do is just take their racket back but keep turning and come back to the ready position again to feel what it's like, that the body turning is what takes the racket back, and it's not your shoulder reaching back. So turn the body and let the racket go up with the non-hitting hand chasing the racket. That nice coil and side stretch allows you to uncoil later on. Now, second thing, once we've turned high, now we're going to let the racket drop. We want the racket to drop down, and then it's going to accelerate, and we're going to drop below the ball. We're going to be able to hit topspin, but we need that racket to drop and to drop below the level of contact. To feel what it's like to truly just let the racket drop, try this drill. Hold your racket up, let go of the racket as it's dropping, then catch it. So watch, I'm going to let go and then catch. Let go and then catch. So I'm actually letting go of my racket. It starts dropping, and then I catch. And that's just that dropping feeling that you want. We'll even do it with our students where we'll toss, like little hand toss. They have to let go, grab on, and then hit. Let go, grab on, and then hit. And once they let go, we know their racket's going to drop, and it just gives them the correct feeling. Now, when you drop the racket, and you should be filming yourself to make sure that you're doing these things. So like record yourself and look at it in slow motion. When you drop the racket, you want the racket to close. So we saw Azarenka, she dropped her racket, but only a little bit. And that's how we knew she was going to drive into the back of the ball. So she didn't drop her racket a tremendous amount below the ball. So she was more driving the ball, still with topspin, because you don't want the same amount of topspin on every single shot. Sometimes you're looping the ball like Nadal. Sometimes you want to hit a topspin lob. Sometimes you're driving a ball like you're trying to smoke a cross court, or not even cross court, down the line passing shot in singles. So that's when you're going to close the racket face just a little and drive more into the back of the ball. We saw Serena, she dropped lower than the ball and her racket was closed much more, around 45 degrees. And that's when we saw her really brushing. So they were using a very similar technique, hitting two different types of forehands. One arcing from Serena, one driving from Vika. And really you can use the same technique, if you will, and slightly tweak it to create those different shots. Now that your racket is down below the ball and closed after the second tip, now we got to make sure we are swinging low to high. This is what is great about the Topspin Pro. I just hit my ceiling. This is what's great about it, because you can see the ball spinning. Watch this. I'm going to hit the ball and I'm going to walk up and show you this. See the ball spinning? Cool, right? So you can see it and feel it. If you're a parent, pick one of these up for your kids. Their ground strokes will get so much better. If you're a coach, you need one of these for your students. You know, if you're a coach, you have players who just cannot for the life of them hit topspin. And it's not because they're not working hard enough. It's that they're missing something. They're missing that key to it. This is it. This is why this product is so amazing. And I love using it with my students because they get to actually see topspin and they actually understand how to create it. And then when you start tossing them balls, they love you for it. And trust me, it's good for business. They'll come back. So we want to be swinging low to high from below the ball to above the ball. The reason you have to close the face is that's how you get your racket against the back of the ball at contact. If the racket is straight up and down, and I could like this, and I could take a coin and put it on the edge, if I swing up, then my racket is open, so there's no way to get topspin because the ball's going to go over the fence. This is why beginners always hit the ball out, because they don't know to close the face. So you close the face, then you swing up, and you're spinning up the back of that ball. Getting that spin, that pulls the ball down so you can hit it up over the net and it pulls the ball down safely in the court. Now, this tip I noticed, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago. I was maybe a little less, maybe it's like 4 years ago. I started looking around at club players and I started noticing something. And it had to do with the height of their non-hitting hand. And I was comparing it to the pros. And it was something very simple. When I looked at video and I stopped video of the pros hitting a forehand, they always had their non-hitting hand above contact. And beginners and club players who are struggling with their forehand always had or tended to always have their non-hitting hand below contact. And there's a very important reason why you want this non-hitting hand up. Because if it drops it becomes a counterweight. And your hitting arm is swinging, this arm goes back. And if you've ever seen someone who hits their forehand, if you are someone who hits your forehand and you hug yourself, this is the fix. Because if you hug yourself, you can't turn your hips. Here's the fix. Have your non-hitting hand going up. Remember, the non-hitting hand turned with us, and now we're going to be moving it out of the way so that we turn our hips. But you want your non-hitting hand going up as you're hitting the ball. You want it above contact. That way your hips can turn. If your non-hitting hand drops, it becomes a counterweight, and then you stay sideways and you hug yourself. So we want that non-hitting hand to stay above contact, swinging low to high. That makes sure we can turn our hips into the ball, swing out toward our target, and truly hit low to high swing. And then the finish. Now, Vika was like this, Serena was like this. I actually prefer this finish just because it makes sure, if you catch the racket, it makes sure that your hand didn't drop. If you are lifting your non-hitting hand up during contact, then catching the racket is a great way to know that you moved your hand correctly. Having the hitting hand higher than eye level forces you to swing up and make sure that you don't swing across. So work on these 5 tips. Turn with both hands going up, drop the racket down. I'll do it from this way. Turn with both hands going up, drop the racket down below contact and close it. Swing low to high as you hit, spinning the ball. You can see my non-hitting hand is staying above contact. It's up here like I'm waving to my opponent. And then finish with your hitting hand, catching the racket. Finish with your hitting hand higher than eye level. I promise you, you follow those 5 tips from both Serena and Azarenka, you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.